Okay, so inclusive leadership. Right. It's like everywhere you turn these days.
It really is.
Yeah, every business article, every LinkedIn post, you can't escape it. But what does it actually look like in practice? Like, how is this impacting how we think about HR today?
Right.
So that's what we're diving into today. And we're using a kind of unique source, a Udemy course description.
Interesting. Yeah. And you might think, a course description, what's that going to tell us?
Exactly.
But it's actually a really fascinating window into how organizations are approaching leadership right now.
Totally. It's like a snapshot of these larger trends. And one thing that jumped out at me was this focus on strategies and skills. It's less about just having the authority, like I'm the boss because I'm the boss.
Right.
It's more about, okay, what are the actual skills you need to lead effectively in this new world?
Absolutely. We're moving away from that traditional top-down approach to something much more nuanced. It's about creating a culture where everyone feels valued, heard, empowered to actually contribute.
Yes. And speaking of that, they are not shy about emphasizing DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion.
Yeah.
It's clearly not just an HR checklist anymore.
No.
It's like they're saying DEI is woven into the very fabric of what it means to be a leader today.
It is. And I think companies are realizing that they can't just talk the talk when it comes to DEI. It can't just be some box to tick.
Yeah.
To make a real impact, it has to be embedded in everything from how you make decisions to how you develop your teams.
So it's like, imagine a company where every single decision from who gets what project to who gets promoted is made with this lens of DEI, right?
That's powerful.
It is. And this course description might be a sign that more and more companies are looking for leaders who can actually champion this kind of change.
And there's this other thing that caught my eye in this course description, and it's not something I would have necessarily put together.
Okay.
They make this link between inclusive leadership
Right.
and tackling imposter syndrome.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So how do those two connect? Because at first glance, they seem kind of separate.
Well, not really. When you think about it, a huge part of inclusive leadership is making sure that everyone feels safe to be themselves at work,
Right.
to take risks, to admit when they don't know something.
It's that psychological safety we hear so much about, yeah?
Exactly. So when people are struggling with imposter syndrome, they hold back,
Yeah,
right? I don't speak up because they're afraid of being found out.
Yeah.
So if you can address that imposter syndrome, help people work through those feelings.
I feel more comfortable contributing.
Exactly. And everybody benefits.
And that creates a more inclusive environment overall.
Precisely. And it's interesting that this course description recognizes that connection.
It is. Okay, so we've talked about the focus on skills, the importance of DEI, and now this imposter syndrome angle. But wait, there's more. This Udemy course also talks about building an inclusive leadership brand online.
Online, huh?
Online. Like, is this just about appearances on social media, or is there something more strategic going on here?
I think it's a bit of both. Of course, companies want to be seen as promoting diversity and inclusion, especially if they're trying to attract the best talent.
Yeah.
But it has to be more than just lip service.
Right, for sure. It's got to be authentic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's about actually walking the walk, not just talking the talk online.
Love that. So how do you actually walk the walk online?
Well, think about it. Potential employees, clients, even investors.
Yeah.
They're all looking at a company's social media.
It's like a window into their culture, right?
Exactly. So if you're showcasing diverse voices, employee stories, demonstrating your commitment to inclusivity,
you become more attractive to people who share those values.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It becomes a way to attract top talent who care about these things. And it's not just about, looking good to the outside world.
Right.
When companies really embrace this whole inclusive leadership thing, it can actually create this ripple effect that benefits, well, everyone.
That makes sense, yeah. Because we hear a lot about how it's good for a company's bottom line.
Right.
But it sounds like you're saying there's even more to it.
Oh, absolutely. Think about it. When you feel like you can be yourself at work, like you're actually seen and heard for who you are, that does wonders for your own job satisfaction, even just your well-being in general.
It's that whole bring your whole self to work idea, right?
Exactly. You're not hiding pieces of yourself.
Yeah.
And when you feel that way, when you feel comfortable being your authentic self, you're more likely to, take risks, speak up with ideas, even just build stronger relationships with the people you work with.
Right. It makes total sense. And all of that is good for morale, for sure.
Correct.
But also, like you said, innovation, productivity.
I love it.
It's not just some fluffy feel-good initiative.
No, not at all.
It's really a strategy to help build a more engaged and ultimately more successful workforce.
100%. And this Udemy course, it gets into some really concrete skills that people can develop to become more inclusive leaders. Things like communication, emotional intelligence.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a second. Because it's one thing to, throw these buzzwords around, but
Yeah.
how do you actually put them into action? How do you go from like, okay, inclusion is good to this is how I'm an inclusive leader?
Yeah, it's about taking those big ideas and translating them into like everyday behaviors.
Okay.
So take communication, right? It's not just about being clear or concise, which is important,
Sure.
but it's about really listening, actively listening to understand where other people are coming from, especially if they have a different perspective than you.
So it's creating that space where everyone feels safe speaking up.
Exactly. And that's where emotional intelligence comes in. Inclusive leaders, they have that self-awareness, right? They have their own biases.
We all do.
We all do.
Yeah.
And they're aware of how those biases might affect the way they interact with other people.
So it's about recognizing that everyone's coming from a different place, different experiences, different perspectives.
Right.
And those differences, they're not a bad thing. They're actually a huge asset.
100%.
Yeah.
Inclusive leaders, they see those differences as strengths. Because when you have a diversity of thought, you get better discussions, more creative solutions.
The whole organization benefits.
Exactly.
This is making me think about my own workplace, and I'm curious, do we actually walk the walk when it comes to inclusion?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah, we talk about it, but do we live it out? Do we
Yep.
really seek out different perspectives? Do we make sure everyone feels comfortable contributing?
And that's the thing, it's hard. Lots of companies say they care about diversity and inclusion,
Mm-hmm.
but to actually build a culture where everyone feels like they belong,
It's tough.
it takes real work.
It does. It's a journey, right? It's not like you check a box and you're done.
Exactly. It takes constant effort.
Yeah. And even this Udemy course, it's just one little piece of the puzzle. But what's interesting is how this one course description kind of opened up this whole bigger conversation about leadership.
Right.
Like, this isn't just a fad, right? DEI, inclusive leadership. This feels like a real shift is happening.
I think you're right. The world is changing so fast.
That is.
Becoming more global, more diverse. Companies that don't get on board with this,
Yeah.
they're going to get left behind.
It's not even just about doing the right thing anymore. It's about, like, survival.
It is. And the research shows that diverse leadership, it leads to more innovation, more profits.
Makes sense.
Plus, it helps attract better talent.
Right.
Because, let's be real, people want to work somewhere where they feel included.
Yeah, where they can be themselves.
Exactly. It's a win-win all around.
Totally. So, to everyone listening, we got to ask, what about your workplace? Do you see this kind of inclusive leadership happening around you? Are these principles actually being put into practice?
Yeah, think about it.
And if not, how can you be the one to maybe, like, nudge things in the right direction, even if it's just in your little corner of the world?
Right, because it can start small.
Maybe suggest a training or speak up in a meeting, share a different viewpoint.
Or even just make a point of listening more carefully to your coworkers.
Yes. Sometimes the smallest actions, they can really make a difference.
They snowball. They really do.
It all adds up to create a more inclusive and just a better workplace for everyone.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, this has been amazing. Who knew a simple Udemy course description could lead to such a deep dive?
Right. It's been great unpacking all of this with you.
Absolutely. Until next time, everyone.